It's the Teacher Squad podcast with Jane Considine and Heather Wright. It is summer term. This is episode 6, but we're going to go all about sex. What are we going to talk about, Jane?
I don't know, but she ain't off getting on my tits, Gillian Keegan, and her scaremongering tactics. Oh my goodness, me blood's boiling.
Oh, it's a bit of an alliteration. There's loads of S's for this episode. Scaremongering, and there's going to be a bit of soapbox and maybe a bit of singing.
Oh, I want to get the disco started, a bit of disco vibe, me tassel bra, and a space hopper.
Oh, and we're going to finish up with some yawning skies and some stitched stars.
Oh, love it. Come on, honey bunch, let's get started.
Hey Jane, how are you?
Oh, do you know what? I've made a fairly monumental life decision this week. And actually, it kind of sort of sprung on me. Didn't know if it was the right decision, but since making this decision, I just am waking up with a spark of joy every morning.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So, I've got 4 children, you know that, and my youngest is doing their A-levels and will be going on to university, and the last one is flying the nest, and we've been getting used to, Ian and I, kind of a bit of the beginnings of empty nest syndrome and what that might look like and feel like, and Ian actually suggested this because I don't know. I don't. Oh, right. I'm a bit confused now, but it's almost like I suppose I was surprised when he suggested it. That's what I'm going to say. And he said, it's a period of change and we're in a state of flux and we can be a little bit more upwardly mobile. Why don't we go back, because we currently live in Northampton, and live in Birmingham? Because in my life, I can be anywhere because I'm the driving girl. I can go anywhere. And, Northamptonshire's in the Midlands and Birmingham is the Midlands. And so I know it's only an hour up the road, but it means that I'm near my mum and my dad and my sister. But what has been so gorgeous since suggesting this, my brother has been phoning me every night and going, I'm coming back as well, Bab. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so gorgeous that actually we're going to do this kind of gathering of the clan and just kind of wrapping around my mum and dad a little bit more. Because as you know,
Nice.
Heather, my mum hasn't been very well this year. So actually that's also probably sharpened my thinking a bit. So just gorge, just really gorge. So I have become... I'm knackered. I'm really tired, but I still managed to squeeze in a 11:30 till midnight right move obsession looking.
Oh, it's dangerous. Right move and Zoopla, and you have to do both because sometimes what's on one's not on the other, and you can go down a wormhole looking at what they paid for it. Oh yeah, I love a little look on Right Move and Zoopla.
Oh, and then when they say, it has been extensively renovated and you find the previous pictures and you're like, shut up. They've just repainted the peach cream. I'm not having a bar of that extensively renovated. They didn't extensively renovate it. The previous owners did. Oh, yeah, we're all over that.
Yeah, there's some writing topics in there, isn't there? Writing for persuasion and a bit of reading. Do we read believe everything that we read?
Yeah. Well,
these will be featuring in your plans.
Oh, they absolutely will. And a big shout out to Henderson Canellan in Kettering, who have got hyperbole, if you can say it, which I can't clearly, down to a T. Their persuasion is top drawer. I'll just read them for a laugh. I mean, you read the descriptions, then you look at the pictures. It's just like, what a mismatch. But that person, they are working their socks off in the copywriting department in that estate agents, let me tell you. I love it.
That's it. Hey kids, you could be a good writer and you too could work in an estate agents. Maybe aspirational. That's what it is. Sorry if I've just offended any estate agent. Shall we swiftly move on?
Yeah. God, nightmare.
I'm
Put your foot
grateful,
right in
Jane.
it there, babe. Yeah,
Oh,
good.
let's get out of that hole and say something better. I'm very grateful, Jane, for a very lovely virtual author event that I hosted this morning with this gorgeous author, Liz Flanagan. Are you familiar with this Wildsmith series?
Yes. Yes.
Beautifully illustrated by Joe Todd Stanton. He seems to get everywhere, him, with his gorgeous work.
Love Joe. Love
Oh,
him so much.
fabulous. And Liz was fabulous as well. You'd have enjoyed it, Jane, because sometimes author events are kind of where the author is just telling the kids quite a lot of stuff about them, about their book, where the ideas came from, and asking them questions, which are wonderful. I love those. But this one was very much a writing focus. And Liz took the children. There were 1,000 kids on, which was great. And they were all interacting through the process of coming up with a character, but a character who had some opposites within them, so that there was a germ of a story coming out. And then there was a bit of a setting and an opening. And it was a joy to be part of. And it made me feel good. It made me feel good, Jane.
And I think that is really important about three-dimensional characters that have got depth. You know, they aren't just this sort of very obvious, you know, predictable sort of sense of who they are, and that contradiction. That is just a wonderful starting point, isn't it, to develop rich characterization. I really love that. Stolen, nicked. We'll be
Have
doing
it.
next week.
Yeah, and I think for some children who feel like creating a character is this blank canvas, it was a really beautiful kind of technique for them to do opposites. They could come up with that, and they're off. And sometimes moving the rock at the beginning is the hardest part, isn't it? Once we've got that momentum and got them off the starting blocks. Yeah.
Yes.
Should we get off the starting blocks with our topic of discussion? I felt like I wanted to sing to you, Jane. Because we're going to talk about something that's been in the news, and we know we don't do singing because it doesn't sound very good, but I wanted to sing, let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. We'll stop there.
Yeah. Good though. I thought it was going to go somewhere else. I thought you were going to do let's do it.
Beat me on the bottom with the Woman's Weekly. Let's do it
do that
tonight. Oh, I like that one as well. Yeah, I'm sure there are many others. Maybe this episode needs its own Spotify playlist.
Oh yeah, I'll put that on my playlist, babe. Don't you worry. Yeah,
Don't use them in the classroom.
Yeah, I've got a few songs on there I forgot to put in, and we've had 170 emails that I can't cope with. Anyway, that's another story. Where I want to start with is with Gillian Keegan, actually, and the thing that has made me see red is just the utter unpreparedness she has, her mode of hitting the media with just laziness and not being ready. And she's written this open letter to parents that you can find on the DFE website. And this is the opening paragraph. Dear parents and carers, comma, you may be aware of concerns about inappropriate materials being used in some cases in teaching relationships, sex and health education in schools, and parents are having difficulty accessing materials. I mean, what utter scaremongering rubbish. And when she was interviewed by Schools Week, she doesn't know how widespread the complaints are. She doesn't know the nature of the inappropriateness. And she actually says outright, I haven't done a survey. Well, shut up then. I mean, I just think, what is this all about? You know, it's that classic no data. And actually, this is going to make parents really stressed.
Yes.
We all know of one complaint. And a kind of proportionately, this massive response, it just seems utterly ridiculous. And a massive hoo-ha that is going to create a lot of anxiety and nervousness in the parent community. So that is the
and
first
therefore
thing.
cause some bad practice in schools. I'm glad you started with Gillian Keegan because she's on my notes. That's why I was frantically tapping them as you started speaking. I should have felt
Yeah.
like I was in Parliament and gone, whoa, whoa, made the noise as well. But yeah, she's talked about this parents, wanting clarity. Yeah, and my question, who are these
Yeah.
people?
Yeah.
And then there's another clip that she shared where she says, schools should be teaching facts. But then she starts that video by saying, can I tell you about my values? And basically lists the new guidance there. How does that balance? How does that work? But I think that when you unpick some of the guidance, some of it, we can live with and deal with. It's not too difficult. The problem around it is the media get hold of it, like you said, and then whip up parents and cause anxiety, and then cause
Yes.
anxiety in schools,
Yes.
and people start making not the best decisions. On one radio discussion about this that I heard, it was actually the day before the guidance was published. There was a comment from a parent saying, and yes, I rang up my school because I heard that they were reading this book called Julian as a Mermaid. And I said, no, 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 I'm not having that. And it's just like,
Yes.
yeah, these stories are going to come out, and
Yes.
schools are going to panic about sharing great books like Julian as a Mermaid.
What a great
And
book.
it's going to cause caution,
Yeah.
and our profession should be trusted and upheld, and things like this just unpick it, don't they?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Heather. It's another version and stinks again, and I want to say once again, of a lack of teacher trust. Now, Jonathan Baggerly, who's the chief executive of the PSHE Association, says the way this is being packaged at the moment could restrict teachers' ability to respond to the learning needs of the children in front of them. And it's just suddenly feels very kind of guidance, supportive materials turning into don't do that, you mustn't teach year 3 children about the addictive nature of the clickbait sort of buying online purchases. You must not do that before they hit year 3. What? No, shut up. I've got year 2 kids who love fork knife or whatever it's bloody called, and they're
Have
already
phones.
have phones, are addicted to online gaming. And actually, I do want to talk about the gambling nature of inline purchases. Thank you. And it's just like, why do we need restrictive sort of blocks like that? That just and there is a bit of, we are all well trained. Everything here is everything a teacher does is about putting a child at the beating heart of the matter, and our jobs, and we know this, knowledge is power. Our jobs as teachers is to tell children what is wrong, what is not wrong, and making sure children know what's what. And in the realm of relationships and sex education, the knowing what's what, when they're ready, when they've got a boyfriend and a girlfriend, everything we're going to talk about is going to be timely and sensible. And it just feels like this new mode that is coming from the government where the guiding principles of it feels much more like orders. You must not teach gender identity. This is like an order. Well, actually, I'm going to have lots of children in my class at kind of when they're hitting confusing times in their lives, who want to talk about lots of things to do with identity. And in the 2021 census, I just think this is worth saying, there was 0.05% of the population who identified as trans. I mean, the percentage is very, very low. But it feels kind of in parallel with 1988 under Maggie Thatcher's government, where schools were ordered not to talk about homosexuality as part and parcel of a normal relationship. And it's just like, we don't need these sort of hardening and divisive messages, because what is this messaging for? This is politics, and it is for appeasing, I don't know, Christian religious fundamentalists who would apply to remove their children from sex education. But also, is it there to appease middle class liberals who thinks gender identity has gone too far? But actually, for us as teachers, you're now causing more pressure, more anxiety, when we are very capable of providing sex education that is based on knowledge and facts, and knowledge is power, and we want to empower children. That is that.
I think their so-called clarity is actually going to create fuzziness around, well, if I have this conversation, could that be deemed as talking about the thing I shouldn't talk about before year 3, before year 4, or gender identity, which we're just not allowed to talk about at all? You know, a boy choosing to do something which we might determine as effeminate, or wear a dress or whatever, is that talking about gender identity? Or are we, you know, it just makes things difficult, and we should be making it easy for teachers to do the best for those children, to feel and open. I feel like their clarity is closed. It's closing things down. It's stopping openness and discussion, and people feeling safe, children feeling safe to be who they are. And, you know, we talked a lot about children, but what about members of the profession?
Yes.
Where are they? How are they going to feel? How do they talk to children? And we have to remember that in the Equality Act, that gender reassignment is actually one of the protected characteristics. There are lots of protected characteristics, which it seems like they're stopping us talking about. Not right.
But it's just, do you know what's really, I'm just sorry to cut across you there. You know, you talk about if it's not careful, we're going to feel very confused, and it's going to have more fuzzy teaching. We know top drawer teaching is about crystal clear explanation. But the contradiction on the second page of why are they updating the curriculum, it actually says to teach facts about biological sex and gender reassignment, these will still be taught. Okay. But then there's 2 paragraphs saying that gender identity won't be taught. Well, it's just like, that's an oxymoron right there. You know, that is me just ripping up. What the frick are you bloody going on about? You know, yes, of course you're causing confusion. And I'm going back to the research that you can find in the government paper that was brought to the government about our next direction, let's say, with RSE, and the actual evidence base that really good religious not religious relationships, that's just a Freudian slip, because it's like, I just think there's some decisions that have been made that are just trying to appease people. But really good sex education, well, it has 7 different positive impacts. And what are these positive impacts? It increases knowledge, and they're able to measure it, of sexual risk. We have increased use of contraception in the UK with good sex education.
Yeah.
Actually, it reduces, and you can read this either way. I mean, it's part of the positivity. I could say potentially it could be negative, but reduces sexual partners. It delays the point. That's a joke, by the way, everybody. Can we do jokes on this one tonight? It's got a bit heavy in it. It delays the point when young people first have sex. It decreases the rates of teenage pregnancy. Information is power. It affects the prevalence of STDs. And for me, the most important one, it changes attitudes around sexual violence so that people have more healthy understanding about what constitutes
Because that is one
good.
of the things that there's an age limit on, isn't there, when we're allowed to talk about violence?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it comes back to trust as well. What do they think we are actually going to talk about with children? Where is the actual chance to say we're actually trying to make sure that if these children have seen it, they know it's wrong, and that they
Yes.
know who they can talk to get
Yes.
themselves out of that position or to make them safer?
That's right.
It feels like scaremongery that if we
Yeah.
tell children about XYZ related to sex and relationship education, that they're all going to go out and do all. And it's just, you've just proven it there with that big list of
Yes.
wins. When
Yeah.
all that's on the table, win, 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 win. Why?
Yeah.
Why
Yes.
are we? Why are we messing with it? It just doesn't make sense.
You're absolutely right, Heather. And what is going up, of course, and this is a problem, is is kind of sexual violent talk and behaviour in school. And let's not forget about the data. And we, all of us in teaching, are, whatever gender we are standing for strong, feisty, feminist messages about life. We've got a quarter of girls who talk about unwanted touching, right? And then if you go to the primary modules, and I just do want to talk about primary because that's where our specialism is, we've got two units kind of that are about being safe and internet safety and harms. The data is moving so quickly, we can't keep up with it in terms of how many kids have got a mobile phone in their hand, essentially a supercomputer, which makes them very unsafe and vulnerable, and how to navigate that. I know it's hearsay, but I know of schools who've had to deal with children who have accessed porn in primary because they have phones. We do need to talk about explicit sexual acts, not in a way that's going to hurt or disturb children, but we do need to talk about that appropriately in relation to internet safety. So you can't, it's like the horse before the cart, or the cart before the horse, whatever way it is. Well, it's just like, it's got to be the right way round. And a lot of these issues are interplay with each other. And we do have to crank up and respond to where society is. Children have got a lot of questions, and just like, no to, like, oh, you can't do that in year 4. We can't talk about the change in adolescent body until they are this age in year 5. Well, we know that we've got children who are girls who are 8 and 9 who start their periods. It's a small percentage, but actually, what are people scared about?
Yeah,
Why are we so scared about talking about menstruation with 9-year-old girls. What are you scared
And
about?
boys. Like,
And boys. Yeah, exactly. I
what are we
started my
scared of
period
is a
when I was,
massive question.
yeah, I was 10 years old, you know, and then because it doesn't come in till the end of year 6, well, it's too late for me. Too late for me. Period talk. Too
And
bloody late.
an understanding of what other peers are going through, and
Yes.
yeah, what are they scared of? I think is probably a very good question. And when we say they, happily that attach that they label to the Tories, the
Yes.
something that Gillian Keegan had said is teachers are there to teach facts and be impartially and not push agendas of campaign groups. And I thought that was incredibly telling of what this is all about. But it's a consultation. What teachers need to be reassured at the moment is it is not statutory guidance.
Good
It
point,
is
Heather.
a consultation.
Yes.
Here's another one of those times for you, Jane. It's another
Yeah.
11:59er, not a
Yeah.
69er. It was an 11:59er,
Ah,
and
what a shame.
this one is the 11th of July. Um,
Yes.
Interesting when you actually go to the website and it shares about it. There's this tiny little button that says consultation here.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it's less of a big listen than our last topic, but the opportunity to put your voice to it is
Yes.
there. And
Yeah.
again, I think a call to arms here. People need to go ahead and shout out.
And I'm also going to say this, even though it's, you and me are primary beings, as it were, but the direction for secondaries to only have explicit discussion of sexual activity, and we can't do that before year 9, ages 13 to 14. A third of pupils are having underage sex. So what are we waiting for? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Just
and same
what
question.
are we waiting
What are we
for?
scared of? What
Yeah,
are we
what are we
scared of?
scared of? And actually, we need to be talking about so much detail around this because there is so much to do. There is
Yeah.
so much to do, and actually, a lot of Ofsted judgment around RSE has the conclusion has been it's not robust enough. It's actually we need more, not less. So there is aspects that they're proposing that I do agree with, but I just think this sort of putting a tin lid on it is not the way because it's sort of another message about like we're going to do a bad job of that and we can't be trusted. But things like the prevalence of deep fakes, absolutely welcome. Illegal online behaviours, including drug and knife supply, absolutely welcome. The dangers of vaping, yes and
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, we welcome these additions, of course, because of changing society. But then we don't need this other aspect of like always being felt that like Gillian Keegan is smacking our wrists. Just sod off. We know our children, and actually, we and of course we're going to do they're not going to stop us responding to where our children are at, but this sort of sense that we're being secretive and not sharing it with parents, that is absolute tosh.
And actually, when things crop up, scenario situations, then
Yeah,
to deal with that one-to-one with a child is actually harder and not as good as dealing with it in the whole class scenario.
yeah,
And if yeah, it's
absolutely.
becomes
And
proactive is better.
it has to be proactive. So, it's we as teachers are about preventative education,
Mm,
not, oh right, oh here we go, we've hit the skids. and now we've got to unravel this problem. That's not what teaching's about. Knowledge is power, and being able to deal with things before we're in crisis mode, or crisis brain for that matter. That is going to be good practice. We of course are always going to think about things that are taught at the right time, but in terms of personal development, children need messages and knowledge before they're in the hormone mix of being stressed by it, because it really worries me that children have got so much to contend with, and they could be made to feel more lonely or isolated or anxious because we haven't got the right information to them in a timely fashion. And I think, as well, back to what you said earlier, it's sort of, are they trying to make us nervous about using LGBTQ inclusive language? Because I hope not. I'd be really upset. It sort of leaves that sort of bitter sort of sense, doesn't it? When it's like, hold on a minute, are you making us feel uncomfortable about that? Because we're not having that. We're definitely not having that.
No, we need to stamp our feet on that one and make our voices heard.
Absolutely. And so therefore, in year 4, just back to that point of like what we're not allowed to do, it might absolutely be appropriate to talk about growth, change, and the change in adolescent body, because, we might have 9-year-old girls and boys who need to have more information. So, for me, and this is a quote from years ago, and it seems like we've lost our way since the 2010 white paper about this. I'm just going to quote this, Heather. Children need high quality sex and relationships education so they can make wise and informed choices. Our RSE needs to encompass an understanding of the ways in which humans love each other, and stresses the importance of respecting individual autonomy.
Yeah, I think it worries me, this focus on fact when it's about love and respect, and it endangers the thought of all of sex being seen as something that's bad, and making it kind of black and white like that, when actually sex is a beautiful, wonderful thing for everybody to have and be part of the relationship. Are you laughing at me? That was like a really mum thing, wasn't it? I feel like I've gone into, like, when my daughter comes home now, she's year 7, and she came home just this week and said they'd had one of their PSHE lessons, and one of the pupils asked, can a man have a baby? And she told me how the teacher had kind of wonderfully said, well, if that is a trans man, then they've got the biology of a woman and they are able to. And me being like, I'm such an open mum, started to have a conversation and say, like, I really want her to have that feeling that, that sex is when it's her choice, and it's that love and respect. But sometimes she just goes, okay, Mom, can we stop this one now? And you can just see that little cheeky grin, that going slightly uncomfortable. Thanks for your openness, Mom, but can you back off now? I felt like I was getting the same look from you, Jane. But I do think that's really important. We don't want children, and it's the small minority of children who, unfortunately, right now are experiencing sex in the completely wrong way as abuse, for them to not just have all those muddled feelings about it. Sorry, I started soapboxing then, but I think it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And interlinked with that, I think if we're not careful with the proposals, two critical things are lost, and then they become not the guiding principles of what this is about. And I think what we want as teachers to be in a position to do is what you've just said there, Heather. Be a position, be in a position of giving children knowledge about the very positive, beautiful aspects of living a sexual life, and what that entails, and how and all the different ways that can be, and how we define kind of healthy sexual relationships, and all the nuances of that, and how as children they can begin to navigate themselves through that, as well as that second critical aspect, which is about consent. Because it's just somehow, it's almost like the balance has kind of tipped towards some things where it's just like, God, seems kind of in an attempt, because we're worried about difference in people, we're making other things really massively important. And it's just like, we've just got to be damn good teachers of sex education, and doing that deeper and better and clearer is going to have and helps us trip into the 7 big benefits of good quality RSE.
Absolutely. And I think that teachers are going to teach it much better when they feel confident. And like I said earlier, I don't think the clarity gives confidence. I think it underconfidence. Jane, maybe I feel like we're probably coming to the end of this. Those benefits, I think it would be great if you could just share those again, Jane, because I think they're really, really important, and they are what people should focus on when they are completing that consultation.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know there are 7 big benefits. It's the benefits that the government were informed about as well. We'll put the links in the show notes. Just give me a minute, because I've just done a bit of like massive melodrama ripping a paper. Here we go. So number 1, good RSE means we have increased knowledge of sexual risk. There is increased use of contraception. We debated whether this was good or bad, but reduces sexual partners. We have a delay point of when youngsters will first have sex. It decreases the rate of teenage pregnancies. It affects the prevalence of sexually transmitted diseases, and it changes attitudes around sexual violence. The thing I wanted to the last thing I'm just going to say, that these new proposals are absolutely about politics. It really does stink. It reeks of the old Clause 28, and it's nothing to do actually with how competent and sensible and timely teachers are with this issue.
Bring on the election.
Yeah, God, please. I don't know how good I was as a parent when it came to sex education, because I used to lean a lot on books, and I think we all know about Babette Cole's gorgeous Mummy Laid an Egg, but I just... Oh, that double page spread, if you've not seen it, with the sentence that says, here are some of the ways mummies and daddies fit together. And Ian and I used to work through those images, like the Kama Sutra.
The Kama Sutra of children's publishing.
Yeah, I mean, we had mum and dad on a skateboard. We had them on a tightrope, balancing a ball and twirling an umbrella. They were floating in the air with 28 balloons on the wrist. But my favourite, which was a Saturday night special after a couple of G&Ts, let's get the space hopper out.
Woo woo! That's something of the 70s within you there, Jane, the space hopper, I think.
Get the disco tracks on. I've got a fringe bra and a space hopper. What more do I need? So exciting.
Oh, where have we gone with this? I have to say, there are some absolutely cracking books. Like I said, my daughter's turning 12 soon, and those books about periods have got so much better. And just knowing your own body, I'll try. I'll put a few recommendations in the show notes. But there are some fantastic books that are very open and share lots of great stuff for young people as they're growing and their bodies are changing.
Yeah, I think I just had, font 0.2 of a kind of a Tampax leaflet with a very small diagram, trying to work out what the hell that diagram was. You know what I mean? It's just so stressful.
I wonder, Jane, whether we should write some guidance for the other end of the spectrum for for middle-aged men and women about the changes that are happening to their body. I think you'd be the person to have a piece of guidance and a consultation about that, Jane.
Yeah, well, my only thing is don't buy if you're between the ages of 46 and 52 cream trousers. That's all I'm saying on the matter.
Moving on. Have you got, Jane, some wonder of words for me?
I have, because
is it Babette?
No, it isn't Babette, because actually it's probably going against where we should be, which is do not show children silly cartoons if you're trying to improve sex education, which I absolutely agree with, and that would just be a contradiction if I read that. But I chose this book mainly because after thinking so much about relationship, sex and education, and the importance of knowledge is power, it made me think of the end line from a book by my favourite, who is on the list, maybe number one. Knowledge is power. The end line in this book: imagination is free. And I really just think that sums up our jobs as a teacher. We want them to have really good knowledge, information, facts, but we also want that softer part of teaching, which is loose imagination and creativity. So, our jobs are very yin and yang in that regard. So it's I'm going to read you all of this book because it's just so gorgeous. It's A Child of Books by Oliver Jeffers and illustrated by Sam Winston. I am a child of books. I come from a world of stories, and upon my imagination I float. I have sailed across a sea of words to ask you if you will come away with me. Some people have forgotten where I live, but along these words I can show you the way. We will travel over mountains of make-believe and discover treasures in the darkness. And we can lose ourselves in forests of fairy tales and escape monsters in haunted castles. We will sleep in clouds of song and shout as loud as we like in space, for this is our world. We've made our stories, and we're made from stories. Our house is a home of invention where anyone at all can come, for imagination is free.
I love it. Gorgeous, Jane. Thanks for reading that. Shall I share with you what I've been reading this week? So I've got a proof here of a new book that's coming out next month called Pinch Perkins and the Midsummer Curse by Kathy Fitzgerald. Midsummer's Eve. I'm just going to read you the blurb, and then Jane, I've read the whole book and loved it. It's full of gorgeous word building. It's just jam-packed with adventure and magic. It's full of magic, but I've just picked one sentence for you, Jane, but this sets the scene. Someone is misusing magic. Curses have been cast and terrifying creatures are on the move. 12-year-old Pinch Perkins lives on Tricky Dragon Lane, deep in the heart of London's magical quarter. But when her mum is struck by a curse and nobody seems to have a clue what to do, Pinch knows it's down to her to find a cure. Racing the clock on Midsummer's Eve, Pinch will face the terrifying boss of the Thames Mudlarks, dance with the devious fairy king and queen, and share a burger with King Arthur's knights, all while trying to avoid the clutches of two fearsome villains out to squish her. So Pinch has been to see the boss of the Thames Mudlarks. And then there's a bit of magic. And this is the one line. And it totally made me stop in my tracks and made me think of you, Jane, because I thought when you put a sentence up in lights, I thought you'd like to add this one to your toolkit. So it's in chapter 13, and Pinch is just changing where she is. Open your eyes, she told herself. And when she did, an orange sky yawned above, stitched with the light of early stars.
Wow.
How nice is that? I love that. The orange sky yawned above, stitched with the light of early stars. How gorgeous is that?
Oh, it is. That is just show-stopping, isn't it? I can see why you were stopped in your tracks. Wow. Oh, read it to me again, Heather. I love it. Open. Oh, she told herself. No, it's so good, isn't it? It's just that you're ready. Go.
I'll put it into context for you. I'll read the little paragraph. Yeah. Water lapping, Pinch woke to its murmur and the feeling of the cold ground hard beneath her. She sent her fingers groping outwards and found wet, mossy rock. Open your eyes, she told herself. And when she did, an orange sky yawned above, stitched with the light of early stars.
Oh, so good. And actually, just struck me there how in teaching we have to reread, really trying to sharpen their thinking. Oh, love that, Heather. Hey, you nearly seduced me into my relationships and sex education document.
Let's talk about sex, baby. We got to stop before I sing again.
Yeah, no more singing. I'll tell you what, though, if you are not busy on Sunday, I know you like to watch me when you cook dinner. I might have my tassel bra on. I don't think I will. But it might be that hot this weekend. I'm going to be hitting the Sunday sessions. I'm going to be on YouTube, Facebook, X, you name it. And we're going to be talking about the thinking behind writing and actually how we get children to think hard prior to writing so they can really show us what they can do rather than going, right, loads of pressure, a blank piece of paper, just go. That it's about preparing them properly and what are some of the practical things we can do to make sure that their writing can lift off the page.
Amazing. And I think everyone's going to find those really useful, whether they're remembering you doing them in COVID lockdown or whether they're new to them. I was watching you whilst I was cooking prawn risotto on Sunday evening. And I thought,
move on.
I thought, Jane, because you chose a book by David Litchfield with the lead character as named Heather, and I thought I took that as a nod to me that you were missing me, whether you were or not, or just the fact that it's an absolutely bloody marvellous book. But there we go. So I do recommend people go and check those out. Can I just shout out for the big author week that starts on the 17th of June? Sign up is now open. It is totally free. We have a gorgeous picture book focus for early years and Key Stage 1. And we're going to have authors Adam and Charlotte Gillane and illustrator Gareth Conway, who illustrated the Greg, the Sausage Roll Books. They're going to be sharing stuff about their book, loads of free videos and live sessions. And then Key Stage 2, we've got the Super Sunny Murder Club. And that book is written by 13 authors, and loads of them, and gorgeous illustrator Harry Woodgate, are going to be joining us. There are going to be challenges, there are going to be prizes, and loads of bookish goodness, Jane. Not to be missed.
Look at us throwing our wares around for free. I'll tell you what.
What are we doing?
I don't know what we're doing. Oh, Heather, always an absolute pleasure. I love it when you get on your soapbox. I love it when you talk stitching lights into the orange yawn of the sky to me, because it is words for me. And, carry on like this, and we'll have to have a conversation about consent, aren't we?
And on that note, we probably should say goodbye. So it's big love from me, Heather.
And it's Heartburst from me, Jane. See you next week.
Bye, everyone.